I'm Cheryl.
And I'm Naima. We're three Black moms.
What kind of encouraging things are you saying to your children that is building them up and building their self-esteem? I was listening to a program last week where a chaplain who was leading a service at the prison said to his congregation, "How many of you were told by your dads that you would end up in prison?" And almost all of them raised their hands. Now, I taught at a school once where the teacher would reprimand the kids by saying, "Y'all gonna end up in prison." And I remember thinking, that is not helpful. That is not going to give them the kind of encouragement they need to want to build better lives. They're going to rise to the occasion that you've given them. I remember in school, my teacher, Mrs. Moody, used to get on the class clowns, and she would make a comment like, "You all going to end up old, toothless, and drunk on the corner." And do you know that when I went to one of my friends' funerals, three of them, Daryl, Eugene, and Henry, looked like old, broken down men, toothless and raggedy. And I thought, oh my goodness, Mrs. Moody's predictions came true. What things are you saying to your children that's going to build them up? The tongue can be an evil thing. You can make a comment that can totally destroy a child. And you need to say things that are going to build your child. What does the Bible say? The tongue is a restless evil. You can control horses and oxen, but you can't control your tongue. And a tongue will set a forest on fire by the evil things that come of it. What are you doing to build up your children and not tear them down?
I think that a lot of parents believe that if you say negative things, that's going to encourage your child to prove you wrong. I remember our mother telling us that this is what she experienced as a child. Teachers in school that would maybe call the students dumb, or say they're if they get an answer wrong, kind of embarrass them. And this was supposed to be the way that this would encourage you to strive harder to prove the teacher wrong. I've seen a lot of teachers that use that method. I've seen a lot of parents that use that method, the negative motivation method. And for some people that may work, but I've found that also, well, for those people who say, they had to try really hard to prove themselves, usually there's some other kind of personality disorder that comes with that, because you never really prove yourself in your own mind, because you're always working against the people who have tried to put you down. And I found that positive reinforcement is a lot more effective. But I have witnessed, a lot of my friends who teach, I've witnessed that negative motivation, which really isn't motivation. And a lot of times the child does end up living down to your predictions, or up to your predictions. If you tell them, you're going to be nothing, you're going to end up in jail, you're going to be a dropout, you might have a few that say, well, I'm going to prove them wrong, I'm going to really try hard. But you have a whole lot more that say, yeah, I guess I'm nothing. And I mean, how do parents realize that they may be using that negative method because it was used on them? How do you recognize when you're actually doing that to your own child?
We talk a lot about, and derisively about, participation trophies. Every kid gets a trophy just for showing up, and how we need to do more to make sure that people earn, whatever they're given. The one thing you do not need to earn is your parents' love and support. Your parents brought you into this world either by birth, by adoption, accepting you into guardianship, foster care, however your parent is parenting you. You deserve, by your existence, to be supported, loved, and believed in. And that is just part of being a parent. And in our culture, we tend to revisit our trauma, and we have been traumatized for 400 years. But we revisit our trauma on our own children. And we don't tell them, you are my gift from God. You are my hope for the future. The reason why enslaved people could continue to have their children, even if they didn't know if they would be able to raise them, was because that was the hope that someday we would be free. That someday came when we got a Black woman as our first lady who came from enslaved people. And we need to remember that encouraging our children is what motivates them, not discouraging them by telling them they're stupid, they're ugly, they're worthless, they're going to end up in jail, they're bad. I remember there was once a woman who came who was there with her husband, who was fixing something in my mother's house. And the little boy was, I want to say 2.5, maybe. And the young mother kept saying, well, he's bad. And I says, please don't say that. He's not bad. He is age appropriately curious. And he is showing that he is intelligent because he is curious of his surroundings. So don't tell him he's being bad. And that's what we tell our children. We tell our children when they are being appropriately curious, when they are having an appropriate meltdown, that they're being bad. They're being children. And we need to remember that our children are precious. And that's the thing, is that we have to get out of that slave mentality of denigrating our children and into that slave mentality of, you are our hope for our future, that one day we will be free. I remember, and I'm going to mention my favorite television show, FBI, and there was an episode where one of the main characters was tasked to be an undercover and pose as someone else because he was Egyptian and all this stuff. And the person who was supposed to be helping him had been one of his teachers and had denigrated him the whole time, telling him he was going to get his partner killed. And the character and the actor, Ezekiel Zaki, who is a Muslim American, and he is Egyptian American, had said at this time, why did you ride me so hard? Well, this man had seen something special in him, and he wanted to make him prove himself. So he kept telling him, you need to quit. And the man told him, that didn't work with my own son either. And he didn't have any relationship with his son because he used that method of negative encouragement. And it was an interesting dynamic because obviously Agent Zidane got the job done, but it was that hurt that he had carried this whole time from someone saying, you're not good enough. Stop telling our kids you're not good enough. They're not just good enough, they're everything.
Yes.
I think that the most important thing for parents to do, as you said, Cheryl, to move out of that kind of negative reinforcement that was visited on us, other people, over time. There's an article in this month's Parents Magazine about how to encourage your child through difficulties, through them just learning things, through their natural curiosity, and how to embellish the strengths they have. One of the examples they gave was that when your child is having a hard time doing something, they're struggling with it, use that occasion to remind them of some effort they made in something else in which they succeeded. Don't say, oh, you can't do that and that's no good and blah, 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 blah. Say something that is going to reinforce their strengths, that they are trying to accomplish something. And it could be anything from a homework problem to putting together a puzzle. I don't know where that attitude came from, that if you say something bad about your kid, that's going to make them want to prove themselves. It's just going to beat them down. That's what people do when they're putting someone else in bondage. That's what bullies do. You say the mean thing, you say the awful thing, and instead of the person thinking, oh, I'm going to prove to you that I'm not like that, something in them is broken. A bruised reed he will not break. That's from Isaiah, talking about God who will restore a person. If you are bruised, you are not going to be broken. That little light is going to be given more fire to help them along. And if you are a parent who is used to using that kind of method, change your mind about that. Say something kind to your child that is going to encourage them, that is going to build them up. Because if you don't do it, who will?
I hear a lot of parents that use that negative encouragement or just really hostile language. And even when you try to correct them, like you did with the lady that called her son bad, I do that all the time.
Yeah.
Even after I've done it, the parents will still, yeah, he's still bad. I mean, even when you explain it and you show an example and you say, oh, he's so intelligent. Oh, he's probably going to be, like, you see them maybe trying to, maybe they're trying to figure out something, and they're fiddling with some electronics or something like that. And so the parent will say something like, oh, you're so bad. And if I say something like, oh, he's really intelligent. Oh, he's probably going to be an engineer. I see he's trying to take apart that radio. I try to set the example. And even after that, the parent will still go back and reinforce the negative. And it's the hardest thing to get them to hear you and consciously change the habit, because that's the only thing they know. And sometimes it's frustrating because you don't want to reprimand a parent in front of their child. But at the same time, you want to say, would you just stop?
I know.
I'm trying to show you how to do this.
Yeah. But that's true. That's true. It's like you have to be the gentle one who says, oh, you know what? You may think of this as bad, but I see a light in this person. I see curiosity. I see intelligent reasoning. I see
potential.
Neil deGrasse Tyson has done that, and we know who he is. He's an astrophysicist. He's brilliant. And he had talked about children, like spilling things or fight, well, they're learning about gravity or making noise. They're learning about these things. And he couched it in a way of, you are curious about the world and you have a theory, and now you're proving it. And it's interesting because one of the more intelligent people on the planet doesn't see this as bad behavior. So why are we seeing it as bad behavior? And it's very frustrating to see that. But we all know hurt people hurt people. And we are traumatized, and we have been traumatized. And for all the things that we grew up in, I try to do totally different. We didn't grow up hearing I love you. There's not a day that goes by that my daughter doesn't hear I love you. There's not a day that goes by that she doesn't say I love you. Because it's important to hear. Yeah, when we grew up, the idea of parenting was just parenting. You weren't your kid's friend, you weren't their confidant, you were just their parent.
Right.
Well, I'm not going to be my daughter's friend. I'm not. But we are friendly. She is an adult now, so we can be friendlier. I'm always going to be her mom, but I'm not the mom of a 6-year-old. I'm the mom of a 22-year-old, so we can have adult conversations.
Yeah.
We can have adult adventures together.
Right.
And we can express that love, because I will tell her, and maybe that's wrong, but I will tell her, you are the center of my universe. You
And
know,
it's important for our children to know that they matter. They're important. I think it's important to say those things that maybe we didn't hear, but also I think it's important to set the example for, because you never know who's watching you when you interact with your child, even out in public. Of course, now, like you say, our children are grown, so there's a different kind of interaction. But I do remember, like, when Zakia was she was very young. I think we'd had a party at the house. Matter of fact, we had somebody's wedding at our house, and we were cleaning up afterwards. And I'm running the vacuum, and some of the people stand around, they help and do the dishes and stuff like that. And I'm running the vacuum, and Zakia's, keep trying to grab the vacuum and everything. And, she's running in between and so forth. And I said, "Oh, you want to help?" And so, one of my friends said, "Oh, wow, that's really interesting how you did that." And I'd have been saying, "Would you get out of the way?"
So, there is a moment when you have to rethink that. And I think part of the reason that young parents have a hard time maybe with toddlers, they were not, or older children, they were not trained in that way. And I think there are a lot of resources that are available to young parents to learn other methods of redirecting your child, of encouraging your child, because there's way too much of that. I know for myself, I tried to be extremely encouraging to my children when they were younger, because I know the hurt that comes from being told things like, the older you get, the stupider you get, use your head for something besides a hat rack. I mean, these things are laughable when you look back at them, but at the time, they're kind of painful to hear that kind of stuff.
Yes.
And it doesn't really help your child build confidence in themselves and their own abilities. I think a lot of young parents learn by seeing older parents exhibit good encouragement skills. Sometimes these are things you may learn in some kind of parental training, and they have those things available. You can go on YouTube for anything. Look that up. How do I encourage my child? And you will find all kinds of methods that will give you skills and steps to move away from negative reinforcement, which isn't reinforcement at all. Really, it is damaging behavior. It is damaging. It's a damaging way to try to teach your child to do better, learn better, and have confidence in themselves.
And if you want something that's more centered around, Black families, because there are some things that we do that are different. Some good, not bad. I'm not sure if the name of the book is Raising Black Children or if it's about Black parenting, but the author is my daughter's former first pediatrician, and her name is Anne, Anne Beal, Beal, and she wrote a book about Black parenting. I encourage anyone, I went and bought it. I encourage anyone to go out and find it. You could probably find it on Amazon, like the rest of the world is on Amazon, or find it somewhere. Maybe it's in a independent bookstore, always good. But there are resources for us, because we have our own way of doing things. We've talked about corporal punishment on here, but a lot of the things that we do, there are just a lot of negativity that have been visited upon us. The whole thing, get any of us in a room, and Black women can talk about the torture of getting our hair done when we were little. Even my daughter can talk about that, even though I tried not to be torturous because she's tender-headed like me. So there is a lot of things that we do that we don't necessarily think of as triggering, but they're triggering. And if you tell a child that they're stupid when they're little, or they can't get anything right, or what's wrong with you, or all those kinds of things, you're only extending the trauma that has been passed down.
Yeah.
You're passing down that trauma instead of saying, you know what? It's like the whole thing with us deciding not to drink. This ends with me. This cycle of alcoholism ends with me. This cycle of psychological trauma ends with me. This cycle of saying, you know, the older you get, the stupider you get, or not saying I love you. This ends with me. I'm going to be the parent that I wished I had.
Right. And I have a lot of people who talk about, you know, older and, you know, really since the world is trying to talk something that people whatever. We didn't work because of maybe our parents they strong. You know, out of the race from people didn't know how to express know how to their children and expect their children parent, you know, they didn't know how to love. And this is a lot of our are still existing. We're still there. Low self-esteem. People that they have that hurtful or in a lot of us are wounded and we struggle to overcome and try to stay. We learn how to do by example. It's hard. Learn how to nurture in a bit you nurture. You know, you have to learn how to reinforce your child's self-esteem and make all night or break something. You know, like they brought important. So you must respond in the way that he exists. Sometimes you hear things come out. So we always hear ourselves and see ourselves and I'll speak and explain how I feel about what we are doing. And I had some real painful, you know, and things I didn't remember that I did. And what we talk about, so, I didn't realize came out of my mouth. I want to make sure you always kids. And so maybe I think that's the motivation that you know this out. They didn't know what they were saying. What they were acting is so all the time really so that it becomes a good would you think to have those conversations that are really good or feel for how we just they can be aware and then even more aware so they keep asking
Okay, you were breaking up. Did you hear any of that, Barbara?
Not a word.
Okay.
I thought it was me. That's why I kept smiling.
Yeah. As soon as Naima started talking, she started breaking up.
Yeah.
It might be
Yeah, your connection is messed up.
Yeah. You're frozen and it's just like yeah, you're still frozen.
Yeah.
So we should go back out, close it. Nope. You're still bad.
Yeah.
Okay, because it ended. I mean, you got all what I was saying, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so what we need to do is go back out and then maybe you can pick it up after I speak and say what you were saying, Naima, because that's when it's just your
Right.
connection. Mine and
Yeah.
Barbara's are fine. Like we can't even hear you.
Yeah. Your whole thing where you were talking was totally illegible. Could not be understood.
Right.
It was garbled.
It was all garbled and you kept freezing. Still can't hear you.
You're still frozen.
So we're still streaming. So like I said, let's send another stream and we'll continue it with what you were saying.
Yeah.
To remember. And then we don't all have to start all over at the very beginning.
Yeah.
You want to take us out?
So we should. I'm thinking we should leave.
Okay.
Okay.